Frank, how are you feeling today?
Very good. Very good. I mean, having a bit of a slow time at the moment. I mean, after all the festivities and after all of the craziness that comes with it, but good is the right answer.
Very good, very good. It's the time of the year to reflect and to think of what we've accomplished this year.
No, definitely, definitely a time to look back and reflect, not only on accomplishments, and also be in a position to maybe set yourself some targets as well for what you want to achieve in the next few months.
All right. What are your prospects for 2024?
I think growth. I think to continue growing. I think 2023 was a very positive year. All in all, on a personal level, on a professional level, I think keeping up the momentum, keeping up that kind of pace, and keeping up that growth across the board, I think is a very simple way of putting it.
All right. What does it take though to keep that growth at a steady pace across the board?
I always say eyes on the prize. I always say know where you want to get to. It will not be easy to get there. There will be distractions, there will be deviations along the way, but eyes on the prize. If I want to get to here, I know I need to go through a number of places, but the end goal needs to be very clear in your mind, because along the way, as I said, whether it's distractions, whether it is other opportunities, there are going to be plenty of opportunities to get you to lose your focus.
How do you define the prize though?
I mean, I am one of those people who there's the fine line between what's personal and what's professional.
Yes.
That line for me on a personal level is very, very blurred. But it's all about understanding what the vision is. I mean, my personal life very much ties in with the vision of the brand, with the vision of the company that I work for, that nowadays I manage. So on a personal level, it's very easy to be able to set myself goals, because it ties in, as I said, very much with what I do on a professional level.
Okay. How did the brand, how did you become the brand? Because I can see it. Your shoes says it all. It's part of the brand. It's
No, I think if you cannot, when you're in my position, I think if you cannot live your own brand, how do you expect people to live it? So if the brand that you're trying to project, you almost want it to be a way of life, you need to be the first person living it. You need to be the person. I mean, when it comes to clothes, I'm the kind of person that goes and if there's something that's the same color or whatever, I'm picking it, putting it in my shopping cart and whatnot. Do I take it to an extreme? Of course I do. Yeah. But then again, if I'm not the one doing that, if I'm not the one that's really taking it to that extreme, how can I expect the team and all those around me to be in love with the brand, to really relate to the brand?
How did that affect you in your personal life?
No, I think I've just turned 40. I've been in the media industry since I was 16 years old. So
Okay.
it's been quite a while. And for me, again, it's the level of growth. So over the years, I've been very lucky to work with some very good, talented people, some great producers, some great directors along the way. It then got to a point where even within Vibe, the opportunity came for me to be able to leave my mark. It's by no means a one man job. I mean, it's a team effort. But whenever I'm working on projects, I always look at what the possibility is for me to be able to leave my mark on something. And that's what this is all about, you know. It's not just about rebranding, changing the logos just to be able to say I did it.
Yes.
But about understanding, okay, why do we need to rebrand? Why does the current branding no longer work for us? Because obviously times are changing. You need to evolve. You need to understand what the needs of the brand are, what the needs of the company are, and what the needs that your brand is looking to address are as well. And then slowly you start to I mean, we're very lucky. I work in a creative industry, so as crazy and as stressful as it can be, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
so
one of the perks, I would think. So
Yes, I mean it's a lot of hard work, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd rather be putting in 16 hours a day doing what I love than working an 8-hour job doing something that I don't necessarily engage with or relate to as well.
Definitely. Frank, you mentioned the leaving your mark, and I, at least from my experience, I noticed that when people join certain positions at work, they try to change everything all at once at the beginning, just for them to leave their mark and to show that they are putting in the work. However, I think that is somewhat counterproductive in a way. Because
that is definitely. I mean, you leave your mark not by changing things. You leave your mark by evolving things. And if you want to evolve things, the first thing you need to do is recognize if there's heritage in a brand, and nowadays, even if the brand is 5 years old, there is a level of heritage. You need to understand that heritage, respect that heritage, and then understand how you can adapt and evolve. But you evolve, you don't change things. The brand, if you want to continue growing a brand, unless you want to close shop and go into a completely different business model, and then it's all about evolution. So definitely you don't rush into changing things, even if there are changes that need to happen. Definitely you don't need to rush. So one of the things that I really admire in even some new people who maybe join our team and management and whatnot is that the first few months they take a step back and analyze, understand what's happening before they start throwing their ideas on the table. Obviously, you don't want to wait too long then.
Yeah.
Because then you run the risk of the opposite happening, which is where people become comfortable with the way things are, and you're looking maybe at these people to maybe challenge you in certain aspects. So again, it's all a balancing act.
You need to absorb first and then start implementing.
You need to absorb, you need to understand where the people came from. I mean, if you're employed by a company and then you're looking at maybe doing some tweaks along the way, the truth is the company employed you. So the company employed you because somehow there was already a bit of a fit, you know? So you can't just go in and change everything like that without first understanding what the company really stands for.
Definitely. Frank, let's get to the micro level of things. What is a brand?
Nowadays, everything is a brand. Nowadays, everything is a brand, but obviously where I stand, I don't look at Vibe FM as a radio station. I look at Vibe FM as a content house. Why? Because just doing radio is not going to cut it nowadays. Just doing digital is not going to cut it. Or else we can just do digital, but then what is distinguishing us from others who are just doing digital? We have a platform, we have radio. So it is all about understanding, in our case, it's all about understanding the advantages of all the little platforms, of all the little presences that we have, even individual team members who will bring their own brand to the table to work with our brand on air, if you know what I mean. But nowadays, a brand is to me, it's everything is a brand. To me, something like a radio station is a brand. A product you use is a brand. Everything is a brand nowadays.
Mm-hmm. But why is it so important that there is a brand, that there is some sort of...
I think... In our case, we work in entertainment. I think giving an importance to the brand, understanding what the brand is, what it stands, helps you understand what you should and what you should not be doing.
Okay.
So if we're generating content, we need to know who we're trying to speak to. We need to know who our target audience is, and then generate content for that target audience. And that helps us start to understand where you fit as a brand. Because one of the big problems that a lot of people do, especially when they are an entertainment brand or broadcasters or whatever, is that they try to please everyone. By trying to please everyone, you end up disappointing everyone. So again, understanding who your brand is, who your brand speaks to, then helps you adapt or helps you plan what you're actually going to do, what your product is going to be.
Yeah.
There are, I mean, if we talk about radio, the radio side of things, there are other radio stations out there who speak to different demographics, and they're doing a very good job speaking to a different age group. Do I want to try and attract their age group? Maybe if there's a bit of an overlap, but not necessarily, no. Because by trying to attract their age group, maybe then I lose the identity that is what makes my brand and what makes our brand work together.
It's the identity. To me, a brand is like a community. It's like forming a community because maybe philosophically speaking, people like to be part of something bigger than them. So a brand is some sort of an umbrella that shelters people underneath it.
I like the word community. It's at the end of the day something that people relate to. I mean, when you look at the big clothing brands, we're actually paying them to buy a piece of clothing with their name for us to wear it across our chest. It's mad when you think about it. You know, I mean, and sometimes the ones with the bigger logos cost more money. You know, so I'm turning myself into a human billboard for this brand. Oh, and by the way, I'm actually paying it to be the billboard. But what have those brands done to get to that point? They've figured out what makes them desirable, and that's a trick. You know, I think a brand, especially if it's not a clothing brand, but I think the moment you know that you're running a brand, not clothes related, that you really say, you know what I've got in there, is when you actually release your merchandise, and people are willing to pay for it.
Definitely.
That to me is a moment where, and it's happened locally, you know, with big brands, with big drinks brands that you know release their hoodies and people want to buy them. That to me means that the brand has been successful, that the brand has turned itself into something desirable.
Into something materialistic that people can embody, literally.
Exactly.
So, yes, I think a brand is some sort of a community that provides perhaps not necessarily meaning, but a safe space for people to express themselves. I think people would embody different kind of brands.
Of course.
Because we are a little more complex than we think, and we are more complex.
And there are different types of brands that we engage with differently as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way I would engage with a phone brand is very different that I would engage with a fashion brand, even though nowadays a phone is becoming the ultimate fashion accessory. And it's in the same way when it comes to what we do as well. I don't expect people to engage with us in a way that they engage with a clothes brand. But eventually, we'll see.
This is noise at the same time. So how can we find ourselves within all of this noise, all of these brands going around?
It's not an easy question to answer, but at the same time, I work in entertainment. I work in noise.
Yeah.
My job is to generate noise, compete with all the other noise out there, and get people to listen to my noise.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Even on a personal level.
Yeah.
Even on a personal level, if I'm posting something on my personal channels, the truth is I'm fighting for people's attention. Again, I think it's about understanding what makes you, what makes your brand, what makes whatever you want to represent unique and relatable. And I think keeping it real. I think understanding that this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what we do, this is what our company does, and sticking to that. Even if along the way you're going to maybe alienate some people who don't necessarily align with your vision in the long term.
I think that becomes a byproduct in the sense that authenticity doesn't resonate the same with everyone.
Yes.
So you can be authentic, yes, you can be true to yourself, but your authentic self might not align with other people's beliefs. So does it mean that you adapt? You can adapt, depends whether that puzzle piece fits within your identity.
I agree. No, I agree completely with what you're saying. But again, it's all part of the growth. It's all part of understanding yourself, understanding what you want to be doing, understanding. You know, I mean, again, if I look at what brand I represent at the moment, it's also understanding what works and what no longer works. You know, what maybe we've done in the past and what we now need to do maybe slightly differently. And that's the evolution of a brand. A brand, even if you say, I'm going to leave it there and not do anything to it, I'm just going to leave it as is, that brand is still evolving. It's a living thing. It's still going to adapt. Because if it doesn't, the truth is the audience, your target audience, is adapting anyway. So it's still going to change somehow.
How comfortable do you feel in letting go of things for new ones?
I'm a creative. I'm the kind of person who gets excited about something, and the second you're done with it, I'm always saying, okay, so what's next?
Okay.
You need something. So I, on that front, on my end, maybe I'm too much of a dreamer sometimes. But yes, it's not easy. It's not easy to look in the mirror and say, why is it that stuff that I did 10 years ago is no longer relevant? You know, is no longer as cool as it was. But that's growth, you know. I mean, it's very simple. If you look at why do we cringe when we look at some of our old photos, you know? I mean, because the truth is they were probably cool back then, but some of it is no longer cool. You know, thank God Facebook came at a time when I was past puberty. You know, because some of the things that I was doing pre-Facebook, you know, when it came to hair colors and very odd fashion choices, you know, they were very cool back then. I was turning heads, but thank God they're not living on Facebook, those moments.
But it would have been part of who you are as well. So
Yes, because it's part of the growth. I mean, I look at, sometimes I go back and I watch some old TV shows that I did over the years, and some of it is pure cringe nowadays.
even the jokes, even the jokes they say, I mean,
It's even the style of editing, even I mean, nowadays, even if you look at music and you see how music is evolving, but that's it. You either say, no, this is what I do, and don't change your style of music, and you eventually start, it's the beginning of the end. The moment you decide to stay put is the beginning of the end. Or else you continue evolving. And we've had plenty of people who over the years have evolved and have figured out ways of staying relevant.
I think one key word here is staying curious. Because if we lose that youthful side of ours, that sense of curiosity, that saying, this something new came out, or even changing your phone.
It's all a game. It's all playing, you know. I mean, if you keep playing the same game, eventually, you know, you need to adapt, and adapting is one of those things that is critical, because if you're not adapting, those around you are, those around you are evolving,
And you'll be left behind.
Yes.
And that's the harsh truth of social media as well. So if you're not upkeeping yourself to a certain point of relevance, you're left behind.
Definitely. I believe that's part of the fun of it. Honestly, I think that's the fun of it. I think curious, again, is a very, very good word to use, because by staying curious, we stay engaged. The second you disengage, doesn't work.
And there's the fear of missing out then. So it's something that you might have been engaged at some point, but then you lose interest, but at the same time you feel, I'm missing out on this.
That doesn't... Well, I'll be lying if I say I don't get FOMO from time to time when it comes to things, but then again, it's about knowing yourself. I also know when to say, you know what, I know I'm missing out on this, but now this is a moment where I need to step back, where I need to rest, if I need to rest. So did I have plans or ideas or a whole list of things I needed to do over the Christmas break? Of course I did. I did none of them, and there's no regret about that.
True.
My spare bedroom, which I was planning to actually organize and whatever, is still a mess. Big deal. You know, at the moment, yes, does it mean that it needs to stay like that forever? I'm still frustrated every time I look at it, but then that's where the rest comes in. That's where you need to understand, to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back and give myself me time.
Prioritizing as well. So it's good to prioritize what's what's important to you
Definitely.
at that moment in time, because you might think that there are some things that are important, but I think your body will tell you what it is.
No, I think we are subscribing across the board, not just people who work in my industry. I think we're subscribing to too much of a fast lifestyle.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is what it is. It is what it is. So just saying, this is too fast, I'm going to slow down, is not an option. Understanding how to make it work for you, or understanding which battles to literally fight is I think critical as well. And I'm very lucky because here there's a great team of people. So even on a professional level, when it comes to issues that we're trying to address or whatever, everyone has his own battle, everyone has his own departments and whatever, and then we literally decide we divide and conquer, if you know what I mean. And that's what's great.
So you do have a support system here.
Totally. I don't think we would have been able to achieve any of what we've achieved without there being a team of people who are all pulling the same rope with aligned visions. And that goes from the company owners, to the shareholders, to the senior management, to the management, to the employees, who are not decision makers, but at the end of the day are the doers. I think if your visions are not aligned, then that's where the trouble starts. Are there instances where there's conflict? Of course there is. That's part of it. But that is why the first thing I said is eyes on the prize. There might be 100 different ways of getting there, and we can argue about it all day long, and that's fine. And at some point, one of us is going to say, you know what, okay, let's do it this way. But the one thing we cannot compromise on and have to agree 100% on is, what's the end goal? Where do we want to get to? Why are we doing this? The how we get there, that's...
I think the how comes naturally. So the how
comes
follow.
naturally.
So if you know the why, the how will follow. So I think it comes quite naturally if you know where you're going.
Exactly. And it's about trust, I mean, there are people in the team that I trust blindly, because I have no choice but to trust blindly, honestly. So, because I cannot be the one that is involved in every single thing the company does. And the reason why is because I need my rest. I need my days off. I need the days where I have to switch off. So that's where you have to surround yourself with a team of people that you can trust, that you believe in, and that you can say, you know what, possibly in some aspects they can actually do a better job than I do. I mean, I love it when I look at the management team, for example, of the company, and I realize that individually in their own departments they are better than I am. So if you're talking about the person that handles production of ads, he's a better producer than I am. If I talk about the person managing, I don't know, operations, better than I am in operations. If I look at the person managing sales, better salesman than I am, of course. And those are exactly the kind of people you need around you.
What do you bring to the table, to the team?
I nowadays in my role, it's all about the vision. Nowadays, I want to continue dreaming. Of course, there's a level of creativity that I bring to the table. I think there's a lot that I bring to the table. But when you're in a CEO role, in a station director role, essentially you are gelling all these. You're the team captain. You're the coach. But chances are, as I said earlier, that if you look at any of the football coaches, the players they're actually coaching are better players than the actual coach. But that's the beauty of it, that somehow it all gels together nicely and somehow it works.
Do the employees give you feedback on how you are as a CEO?
Yes. Yes, I ask for it.
Okay.
I am very open to criticism, even if maybe at first, and it's the human nature, is to go on the defensive the second someone criticizes, then I do try and listen. I think I think when it comes to feedback, it's all about how it's communicated. You know, I think it's all about how it's communicated, and I think if it's communicated well, it is received well most of the time. Again, that's the relationships, you know, that you find yourselves in you know, at company level. You know, if there's a level of trust, if there's a level of respect, then yes, you can tell me things that I might not necessarily want to hear, but those things need to be heard.
Was there any particular feedback that surprised you, that you never thought of?
Not exactly. Not completely, no. Because if you observe, you almost then learn characters. So nowadays, I'm in a position where I know immediately that a person has maybe something he needs to say, but that's, again, we're quite a small team here, so I'm lucky because I'm part of a team where at the end of the day we're just, I believe, under 20 full timers.
Okay.
So it's very easy to keep tabs, to understand what's happening. You know, you bump into everyone on a daily basis.
It's easier to build a relationship.
So it's easier to understand, it's easier to spot the signs of someone who's disengaging, of someone who's not agreeing with something and whatnot, you know. But yeah, I mean, no, I'm not going to be. I don't think I've ever been completely blindsided by something, you know, because you understand characters, you understand people, you understand how they work, you understand what makes them tick, what makes them switch off, and learning those characters is important. I mean, even I think when it comes to people, you know, who tell you, you know what, my job here is done, I'm going to move on from the company and whatnot, I don't think I've been ever completely surprised. You see it coming.
Yeah.
If you know
deep
what
down,
I mean.
you know, I think, you know that you're doing
Deep down, you see that person disengage and whatnot, and if you're ever completely blindsided by it, then there's something wrong with the way you're trying to run the company.
Even
you know?
if the feedback is about you as a person.
Yes, I mean, it's not easy. It's by no means. I mean, there's a level of pride, there's a level of ego. I'm a very proud person, so there's a level of ego that plays. But again, it's if the feedback is about me, I've had instances where I've had people telling me, you know what, you did that. I did not agree with you because of this, and that, or maybe I felt let down by that thing you did. I think then, if you're willing to give me that feedback and I'm willing to listen, then you need to be ready to listen to my side of things, because most of the time, it's a disagreement or a misunderstanding, you know. So I'm in a position nowadays where, on a personal level, where I don't play games. You know, if something doesn't engage me anymore, I'm going to show it very, very quickly. And it's not just because I'm proud of what I am, but also because I don't like wasting people's time, and I don't like wasting my own. So if there's an elephant in the room, I'm going to figure out a way of bringing it up. You know, I'm not going to keep ignoring it. Listen, might have to wait for the right moment to bring it up, because obviously life is not that easy. But I will find a way of saying, listen, oi, I've noticed this. What's going on? Or what's wrong here? What's wrong there? Or have I done something to offend you or whatever? I'm going to try and address the elephant in the room. I think not addressing these situations only makes them worse.
I think so too. I think the main issue with that would be whether the other or the person on the other side is ready to listen and accept and have a conversation about it.
But that's the maturity then. That's where you need to be mature. That's where you need to understand, where even I need to understand. Listen, at the end of the day, if we are in sync on the end goal of where we want to be heading, and there's friction between us, how's that helping? You know, and we need to address it. And I think I think that's a struggle in Malta across the board when it comes to a number of companies. When it comes to conflict resolution, it gets very
difficult conversations.
they're very difficult conversations. I think it gets very personal very quickly.
Yeah.
I am the kind of person who takes it very personally as well, because I'm personally invested in what I do.
You are the brand.
But then again, I'm a part of the brand, but the brand is bigger than I am. You know, and I like to think that the brand can continue evolving, can continue growing even without me. That's the power of the brand, you know. But it all comes down to maturity. It all comes down to being in a position to say, you know what, you're right over there. You're wrong over there, or I don't agree with you over there. But there have been times where I've changed strategy or went back on a couple of decisions because I realized that, listen, yes, I was trying to do this with all the good intentions, but somehow it backfired, or it was taking us sideways, not forward, or maybe even there were hints of starting to go backwards. Okay, how do I address it? You know, I mean, I will be the first person to apologize for something, even if the intentions were good all the way and somehow you were offended by something I did. I have no problem saying, listen, not what I meant, not what I wanted to do, but I'm sorry you feel that way. And sometimes people, that's all they need to hear.
Yeah. But it's, I think it's, you mentioned the key word, taking it personal. It becomes very quickly a dialogue of the us and them kind of situation. And sometimes when we're trying to have a conversation about what we like, what we agree on, what we don't like, it becomes like it's as if we're attacking the individual, when in reality we're just putting an argument out there and we have to explore it together. Now, the way we verbalize and articulate things makes a whole lot of difference. But ultimately, when there's an argument in between us, we're just exploring it together. I'm seeing it from my angle and you're seeing it from your angle. Let's explore it together. But somehow it goes personal too quickly.
No.
And becomes about me.
Definitely. I think the us and them is dangerous in the sense that it shouldn't be us and them. It should be you and the brand, if anything. So if you have, and that is where it does get personal, but I like to think that I'm very objective personally. So if you have a problem with me, I like to think that I am mature enough to ignore our personal issues, because if for the good of the brand, me and you need to do this together, we're going to do it. So the us and them worries me, yes. Because the us and them means there's personal agendas. To me, it is you and the brand.
Yeah.
And even if those are not aligned, then yes, then there's going to be 100 other problems. But if me and you have a personal issue, but for the sake of the brand, this is the direction we need to be going. That's all about the end goal. If the end goal is the same, then there's no us and them. Then there's the team, there's the vision, there's the golden goose we're trying to get to, or whatever, you know.
And sometimes I feel that it becomes the us and them mainly because we associate the argument with the individual, in the sense that we expect the other person to fully immerse themselves in our own perspective and to give us their everything. Whereas in reality, I think it's healthy to disagree. What is not healthy is that we pick that argument that we don't agree upon and we associate it with the person completely. And I say, I don't agree with Frank. When in reality, I don't agree with Frank on this, this, and this. We oversimplify the individual in a sense. No,
listen, there will be moments in any, I mean, I've gotten to those positions where you realize that you may be working with individuals or working with people that if I say black, they automatically say white. Not because it makes sense to say what they're saying or what I'm saying, just because then it gets to a point where you say, okay, is this relationship beyond repair? You know, is it going to get to the point where for the good of everyone, someone needs to make way?
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's all about, I think it's about maturity. I think when you get to that point, you need to be mature enough to recognize it, to say, you know what, for whatever reason, this is no longer working. For whatever reason, unfortunately, we need to figure out an exit plan, a different way of doing things. Because at the end of the day, conflict is especially on a long-term basis, not going to help anyone. I mean, you can deal with a bad day, you can deal with a bad week, but you can't have sour relationships, because then that's the beginning of things turning toxic.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it's very unhealthy to go to work 1 week in, 1 week out, every week, feeling like you're not contributing to anything or having something on your mind all the time. So I agree with you on the fact that some things cannot be mended.
No, sometimes it gets to a point where you say, you know what, not gonna work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets to a point where you say, this is it. And I think those are mature conversations that need to happen as well. Listen, am I still contributing to my role? How can I evolve? I like to think that if I ever get to the point where I am a hindrance to the company, I will be, I hope, mature enough to recognize it. Because if the brand is really as close to my heart as I say it is, that's the real test. Where you say, you know what, I respect the brand too much to damage it.
Yeah.
It's not easy by no means, but
definitely not. If you get to that point, what would you want to leave behind to your successor?
I think everyone, as I said, everyone leaves their mark, everyone leaves their legacy. I'm very lucky because if I were to speak specifically about Vibe, if I were to look at the building, the new studios and everything, I was obviously a big part of that change happening. Am I going to take complete credit for all of it? Of course not, because it's a big thing. But I was spearheading that effort. I was, for a number of years, for a number of months, working on this project. So as far as I'm concerned, my legacy is almost already set. Can I top it up? I mean, we're not going to change studios again, definitely. But I think it's all about saying, you know what, it's leaving your mark. It's leaving your little mark. It doesn't need to be something as big as a building. So, clear example, in my previous job, I had worked on some template documents. I worked with a company that produced commercials and organized filming and whatever. And I had worked on a series of documents that we call them call sheets. A few years down the line, I had filming with someone else, different company, and I recognized the template. The second I received the document, I was like, I know this template. And I actually told them, you got that call sheet from that company, right? That template. They told me yes. I told them I know that template inside out because I had built it. Nowadays, if I were to collaborate with this company and they send me a call sheet and it's the template that I had built 5-6 years ago, there's a level of pride. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an Excel document. It's nothing big, but you say, you know what? It's still somehow, it's still somehow there. So your legacy can be something as simple as that. Your legacy can be something as simple as an Excel document. But that goes to show that you've left your mark, that after you moved on, people felt that did not need to change. That was done right, and so your mark can be something as simple as that, can be something as simple as a painting on a wall. You say, you know what, I've done this, I'm proud of it, I look at it, and you go back years later and you say, you know what, still up there.
And so you're saying that leaving your mark is something that you do as a byproduct of you doing your job, and it's not something that you actually work towards. That I want to leave my mark, I will do this.
No, I think the priority always has to be the brand. And you have to leave your mark within the brand, not because it's a personal project to leave your mark, to say, you know what, I changed things. It's not about that. It's you leave your mark in a brand because you can actually contribute to the good of the brand, to the growth of the brand. So yes, so sometimes that's why sometimes it can be something as simple as a document or something that for everyone else might be, you know, silly.
Frank, earlier in the conversation you mentioned that the brand is bigger than you.
Of course.
That's logical because it's made up of multiple people and you are an individual. Do you ever feel like the brand is growing too fast for you and you're struggling to keep up with certain things?
I think the level of growth in the brand is not linear with the level of growth of the team. So if the brand went from this to this, the size of the team did not go from this to this. But the size of the team is substantially less. So there is, yes, that concern that sometimes we're growing too fast. Is it a good problem to have? Totally. Is it frustrating? Tell me about it. Because you find yourself saying, okay, but why are we double the amount of people and somehow still struggling with certain things? Sometimes I call them basic. But it's a good problem to have. So you can, again, choose to look at it as a problem or as a blessing. You say, you know what? We're riding the wave. Is the wave higher than we wanted it to be? Possibly, but we're riding the wave. So you learn to appreciate it. It definitely keeps you on your toes. It definitely gives you a couple of headaches, especially when you're trying to forecast growth and whatnot, because you start to understand that you need more people on the team, you need to invest more in certain areas, you need to whatever. But again, it's the evolution of the brand. I mean, it's growth, you know.
What are your personal struggles with this at the moment?
I think on a personal level, it's communication. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, not as a company, but I think as a country, when it comes to running businesses, is communication within companies. I think we don't give enough importance to it. We are subscribing, as I said, to a lifestyle that's possibly a bit too fast, and the first thing to suffer is communication. So on a personal level, I don't have a problem with the company growing faster than I want it to grow. Great, that's great. What I have a problem with is not having enough time to sit down and have a proper conversation of, okay, this is where we're heading. And so if this is where we're heading, how are we tackling it? There isn't that communication. So because you're obviously running to keep up. I don't like firefighting. I think you need to try and I think you need to try and preempt problems and work towards avoiding them. But at the same time, sometimes firefighting is the only option. You say, you know what, I have this and I need to deal with it now. Am I going to learn next year? We'll try and avoid finding ourselves in this situation. Yes, but now we need to fix this problem. You know, practical example is when it came to the studios. In the absolute ideal world, we would have, you know, shut down the other studios, closed shop for a couple of months.
And then rebuild
and then come here, take all our time to whatever. But there were moments where we were running 2 radio stations simultaneously. One of them was not on air because it was this one, but we were building a radio station, changing workflows here, while on the other end you had the team who was still working there. So even that, when it came to that change, it was a big challenge. And again, not something I could do by myself, or not something that one person can do by themselves. It took a whole team of saying, listen, we're going to divide and conquer. I was off the air from the show for a number of weeks, not because I was on holiday, because I was actually here, you know, in an empty building, figuring this thing out. Because there came a time where I couldn't continue switching, you know, spending my mornings here, spending my afternoons in the old studios. There was a moment where I said, you know what, I need to be here at all times. And then in the same way, there were people who stayed there, not worrying about what's happening here, because they knew that I was handling here, and I had the operations director on the other end, making sure that we're still operating on that end. And that's the beautiful thing about communication.
And focus, because everyone has had their thing to be focused on, and that I think that is important as well, because if you delegate and not direct, then it becomes a problem, because if you delegate just to delegate and don't give direction.
I am lucky because I had experience on film sets, even on a local level, and that is where the delegation and that is where the roles and responsibilities are very clear on a film set. So on a film set, if there is a cable on the floor and people are tripping over it, and it's a cable that belongs to the lighting team, everyone else will walk past it. No one will fix that problem. It's the lighting team that needs to fix it. Even if they're dismantling stuff, everyone is doing their own thing. Even if there's a problem, that team. So if I'm in the camera department and there's a problem with lights, and the director says, guys, can we move that light from here to there? And there's 5 people in the room who are the camera team not doing anything, they won't touch that light. It's not their job.
It's about having extreme ownership.
Like, nope. Part of the reason that they do it, I have to be honest, is because the one time you move the light, you're stuck with moving the light every single time. So there is a selfish element to it, but it's beautiful because everyone knows exactly what they're doing. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. Everyone knows exactly where the line is, and they don't cross over the line. In fact, if you look at a film set and you look at especially abroad, and you look at what's written on the side of the trucks, you have the lighting truck, you have the camera truck, you have the catering truck. No one's carrying each other's equipment. If you need something from the light truck, you speak to the lighting guys. And if the camera guys need to figure out extra space to carry their equipment, they're not putting it in a different truck. It's all different departments.
And on the job, that is role clarification.
On the job, yes. On the job. So as much as it freaks me out to see the team growing in a way that, my God, it's more, we're growing, and it's obviously bigger responsibilities for a company because it's more salaries, it's bigger costs and whatever. It's at the same time great because, you can start to define roles a bit more. I think that is where as well a company needs to recognize that it's grown to a point where roles need to be clearly defined. You can't have people juggling multiple roles. It's a challenge, easier said than done. I still juggle nowadays.
Yes.
I'm on air and behind the scenes in management. But I'm starting to understand, there are times where someone from the team comes, asks me a question, and not because I don't know the answer, but I actually tell them, wrong person. You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to help you, but because I don't want to answer that question for you. You need to be going to the right person.
That is part of growth as well, because you end up being stuck in the startup phase in a way.
Yes.
And that you're
and it's not about me not wanting to take responsibility for something or shoving a problem down the line, but actually about me saying, listen, you're asking the wrong person about it. I will help, if it gets too bad and someone needs to step in. Of course I'm going to step in. Of course I've got your back along the way, but that's not my call to take. Because that's where communication comes in.
So what are the gaps now? What are the problems that you're facing? Because
I think we live in we live in a world where the world doesn't sleep. And the world doesn't sleep. Radio does not sleep. The digital world doesn't sleep. So we work in an industry where
24/7,
where no matter how much time you throw at it, you still realize that you're still playing catch up. So the gaps continue to be there. But at the same time, it's part of the challenge. I wouldn't have it any other way. So are there gaps in communication? Totally. Do we need to, as a company, do a better job in communicating? 100 times, yes. But at the same time, I like to celebrate the little wins. So even though the end goal is what it is, I want to nowadays celebrate the little wins along the way, because one thing that I've learned is that you cannot rush in trying to get to wherever you want to be getting, because it will take a while. You know, if we were planning to be in these studios, I don't know, in a matter of a year, it didn't happen. You know, but it took substantially longer. But then when we did, you know,
You say, yeah,
you say yes, and you still start looking around and say, okay, no, I'm going to change that. No, I'm going to change that. But it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. I mean, if there's nothing else to add, to change, to improve, I think you reach status quo really quickly, and I think that would be a very clear message to say, as you said, now it's time for me to move on.
Definitely. No, I think, as I said, a brand will never stop growing. And I think different people come at different times to be part of a brand, because the brand needs different people with different skill sets, with different with different capabilities in its different stages. I would have been completely horrible trying to build Vibe FM when it was set up originally, you know. I mean, I think the station manager, the CEO that there were back then, they were the right people for that moment. Why? Because they understood what they needed to start up the company. I mean, nowadays, I don't know if you were to tell me, okay, we're going to start from scratch, I would be the worst person for it. Why? Because what I bring to the table is maybe a different level of, not polish, but a different different way of doing things, you know. So the station managers, the CEOs that there were before me were needed at the time, because they brought a certain amount of things to the table. I bring a different approach to things, and that is maybe the approach that we need right now. In the future, who knows? In the future, maybe the brand will have different needs.
But we can't foresee that, so...
But you can't foresee it, but that is where then investing in yourself personally helps. So I like to think that I'm a much better manager than I was a number of years ago. Even in previous jobs, I look at mistakes that I did or situations that I found myself in, even at management, and I try and not repeat them. And I say, okay, last time this happened, this is how I reacted, this is how I behaved, this is what we did about it. So, which is why one of the biggest lessons I've learned is, if there's an elephant in the room, figure out a way of dealing with it.
Yeah,
as
quickly as possible.
Because one thing that I've learned is burying problems under a carpet will only get worse. So it gets to a point where you need to deal with it.
Frank, you're very much involved in outside of Vibe as well.
Yes, I like to keep myself busy.
Which one is your fondest one, let's say?
I'm very lucky because what I do, what takes a massive amount of time, which is Vibe, is something which I obviously live and breathe. But I still want to try and figure out, for example, JA. I know we're both mentoring for JA. I still want to figure out time for it. You know, it's one of those things that I want to try and find time to do it. It's only my second year mentoring for JA, but it's one of those organizations that's close to my heart, that I try and say, you know what, even if the amount if my contribution is this big, I want to figure out a way of again leaving my mark over there as well, even if it's just a little dent. You know, I want to be that. So right now, definitely, I think outside of Vibe, that's taking a lot of my focus. Outside of Vibe, and it's something that's constantly at the back of my mind. But again, it's a welcome break, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I think having difficult I think having different perspectives and detaching oneself from. So let me take a step back. I think it's good to be focused on one thing. I think being focused can get you very much ahead. At the same time, I do believe that part of resting is also detaching yourself from that one thing and focusing on something different. So for me, Scouts has always been present in everything I do. So I, besides volunteering at JA, I volunteer at Scouts as well. Even though nowadays I'm thinking more from a mentoring point of view when it comes to scouting, has been something that it has been a constant so far in my life. So even though occupying a leadership or a mentorship role outside of work helped me have a different perspective. So even though it is deviating me a little bit outside of the focus, it is also supporting me.
But it's a welcome break. That's
Yep.
what I call it. I think it's a welcome break. I think if these little side projects, side gigs you have still align to your personal goal, you know, why do I like spending time with students and you know and mentoring at JA because guess what, that's the audience we're trying to deal with. We're trying to engage as a brand. So does it mean that I do it for publicity? No, but it does help me get perspectives,
Definitely.
and it does help me understand what our target audience is engaging with. You know, I mean, it's a quick way of doing a focus group, if anything.
That's true.
You know, you can bounce off an idea and see how people react to it. And there's a lot to learn. You know, there's a lot of, you know, where you do something and you say, this is why I'm doing it and whatnot, and then you realize that maybe you might want to change your way of doing things because they're not necessarily engaging with that.
And you get foresight in a way that this is the generation that is coming up. These are the people that
Yes.
we need to interact with in a couple of years' time. This might be your audience now, yes, but these will be your ambassadors as well.
No, I mean, my very first interaction with JA was not at mentoring, but was at there was an initiative called Leaders for a Day.
Yes, I remember.
Where they get one student to shadow you for a day.
I was there. I did participate on this. Yes, yes.
That student is nowadays a DJ at Vibe.
Okay.
So still a student, but learning the ropes to become eventually a presenter. You know, and
Nice.
that didn't happen overnight. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we stayed in touch. And then it came to a point where I was like, you know what? You want to sit behind a mic and see how it feels? This person was trying to keep in touch with me for a different role,
Yeah.
for a different job within the thing. And I said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? You know, horrible air check, and we forget all about it. It's fine. And nowadays, that person is on air. That person is on air. And that for me is...
It's an achievement.
It's an achievement. So I do find myself as well then at mentoring level saying, you know what, in a few years, this person might be an employee. You know, yes, they still have to go through, I mean, if you're dealing with sixth formers, they still need to go through university,
Yes, it's
possibly
almost
masters. So you're talking about 5 years
5
down
years, minimum.
5 years
Yeah.
down the line, but you know what? And you start seeing characters and you start saying, you know what, that person in 5 years' time
But you're
is...
planting the seed. I mean,
So it helps you stay relevant. It helps you keep a foot on the ground. And nowadays, whether it's Scouts, whether it's JA or whatever, it's something that I genuinely look out for in CVs.
I think having some sort of voluntary involvement, I think that, so full time I work in HR, and it always pleases me to see that people engage themselves in voluntary, because voluntary gives you many things. One, the fact that you're giving your time, which is the most precious thing.
There's an element of responsibility.
Yes, there is responsibility, and you're doing something out of love. out of the love of what you're doing, and you're giving something to someone without expecting anything in return. I mean, everyone hopes to get something in return.
Of course.
You're in it to fulfill some need of yours. We all are, to some extent. But you might just love doing what you're doing. So that is what fulfills you. That might
No,
be your
definitely.
need. So it doesn't need to be something materialistic or anything.
No. But that's, yes, I think there's nothing wrong with being selfish. Selfish is not maybe the right word, but there's nothing wrong with being a bit selfish and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. What am I going to get out of it? Even if it is personal satisfaction, or saying, you know what, it's going to make me feel good about myself because I've helped someone out. Yes. There's nothing wrong with it.
And voluntary, to be honest, it never crossed my mind when it comes to that. It never crossed my mind. Because I know what I signed up for. I know that I am doing this voluntarily. And whatever comes along with the way,
But you still want to feel good about doing it?
Yes and no.
You still want to feel good about what you're doing. I'm not saying you should do it just because it makes you feel good, but there is a pay at the end of it. There's
the sense of duty, I believe, at least for me, that I.
But that's fulfilling.
Yes.
That's your satisfaction.
Yes, that is.
Knowing that you're fulfilling a duty is for you at the back of your mind, sticking a box.
Yep.
So that box is getting ticked, and someone else is benefiting from whatever you're contributing. Win-win. The world can never move forward if people are not in win-win situations.
Yeah. Definitely.
Whether it is at business level, whether it is at personal level, you can't be in a relationship with a person where it's very one-sided.
Definitely not.
And you probably have been doing voluntary work for a number of years because of that, because there is a win-win situation to it. Otherwise, you just do it, and if you felt at the end of it that you could have been doing something better, it wouldn't be sustainable.
I think the underlying message here is that money is not always the currency of exchange.
No. Money is, on a personal level, money is the least of my priorities. Does it mean that I don't want to earn money? Of course I do. I have very expensive tastes. But at the end of the day, there's so much more to life than money. I mean, I once changed jobs and took a pay cut. You know? So
I don't think there is any job that is more important than compromising your own well-being.
Exactly.
So I would have taken the pay cut again.
No, and again, not because it was a toxic situation or whatever, but because I felt that
your mission was complete.
My mission was complete. I mean, so you move on. And again, it's very cliche. I hate it because it's so cheesy, but it's true. The only constant is change. So you have to learn to embrace change, learn to adapt with it, and be mature enough to understand what you need to do.
I think there needs to be a balance between being constantly evolving and seeking change and whatnot, because change can be toxic as well.
Of course.
So I think there's a balance that needs to be struck there, because seeking change is good, but being stuck is. So let me rephrase: seeking change is good, but can be bad. Being stuck or at rest can be good, but can be bad as well. So I think striking a balance between the two is very important, because if we remain stuck for too long, I feel, this is my personal belief, and this is what I'm afraid of, if I'm on my deathbed and I would say that in the past 10 years, I did nothing new. I repeated what I did over and over and over again. If that fulfills you, that's okay. But I think that you would be missing out on life. At least that is what I believe, because in 10 years, life would have changed. So the world around us would have changed so much that you or me, in that case, in the story, wouldn't have experienced that.
Exactly.
So by not changing or by not adapting, I think in the long run we'll be missing out. And then same goes for if we are changing too much.
You don't have
missing
time to
out.
appreciate.
Yes. So a balance needs to be struck.
But
there.
at company level, that's where then the importance of the team comes in. You know, because you have to, and that is why, as I said earlier, you need to celebrate the little wins.
Yeah, it's very important.
Because I think celebrating the little wins sometimes is more fulfilling than celebrating the big one.
It's the journey that counts, right?
It's the journey.
I mean, the win comes after a while. So for that one win, there can be 1,000 failures. So
Exactly.
But also 1,000 opportunities to celebrate what we've learned.
Definitely.
So the win only comes once, but the little failures compound in a way.
No, and that's again, and that's what makes it so fulfilling. You know, one after the other, one step after the other. Again, as I said, I mean, if there's one thing that I've learned is you can't rush anything nowadays. So I think it's critical.
I think it's the most important part is that we take care of ourselves as well, because being in a rush, it's definitely not for everyone. As we've discussed before, there is the fear of missing out as well. So that what if we are not in a rush? But being in a rush is not for everyone either.
No.
It's okay to take it a little bit easier than others. Again, it depends on the price that you have. You mentioned that you have expensive taste. If you have expensive taste, you have to
work for
you
it.
have to work for it. So it's a natural consequence.
Exactly. But again, that's where the fulfillment comes in.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where the fulfillment comes in. I have no regrets about anything I do in life, even mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from it. And you move on. And it's the same thing with everything you do.
Definitely. Frank, thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invite.
It's been an honor having you on the show.
No, I hope I somehow contributed a little bit.
Sure
I hope
you
I
have.
somehow left my little dent, my little mark.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. Hopefully this was an interesting conversation for you as well, because I know that you're behind the mic most of the time, and that you've been in such circumstances many times in your life. So I hope that this gave you perhaps a different taste.
No, definitely. Food for thought.
That's great. Thank you, Frank. Thank you once
You're
again.
very, very welcome.